Welcome back to Bookish Notes, a channel that shares small thoughts from great books. What is luck? Have you ever felt lucky? Is luck a gift from fate, something that only comes to a chosen few? And the four-leaf clover, the famous symbol of luck, does it truly bring miracles, or is it merely an image woven from imagination? The Secret of Luck is a simple yet profound book by two Spanish authors, Álex Rovira and Fernando Trías de Bes. Published in 2004, the book is not just a fairy tale for adults, but also an invitation for each of us to re-examine our beliefs about luck. That luck is not random, but rather the result of careful preparation and persistent effort. Let yourself be drawn into this gentle and inspiring story. A story that begins in a park, where two elderly men, Max and Jim, happen to meet again after many years apart. Both have lived almost an entire lifetime, but their views on life couldn't be more different. Jim lives with regret and resentment toward fate, believing he has been unlucky. In contrast, Max appears calm, with bright eyes and a gentle smile. He seems to have discovered something that makes his life lighter. From that conversation, Max begins to recount a memory from his youth. Not just an ordinary recollection, but a story that feels like a fairy tale. It tells of two knights, Sid and Knot, who are given an impossible mission by the king to find a four-leaf clover, the symbol of luck, in an ancient forest within 7 days. A plant no one has ever seen, but rumored to grant lifelong good fortune to whoever finds it. In the fairy tale Max told, once upon a time in a distant kingdom, the king summoned two young knights, Sid and Knot, to the royal palace. The king gave them a seemingly impossible task, to find a four-leaf clover in the ancient forest within 7 days. No one had ever seen this clover, but it was rumored that whoever possessed it would have lifelong luck. No one knew where it grew, what it looked like, or if it truly existed. Yet both knights accepted the mission, not for a reward, but out of courage and a desire to seek something extraordinary. The king made it clear, each would enter the forest alone, with no help and no companionship. They could bring whatever they wished, but time was limited, just 7 days. After that, if neither found the clover, they would return empty-handed. And so, at dawn, Sid and Knot left the castle and stepped into the misty forest. They parted ways at the very first fork in the path. Same starting point, same goal, but each chose a different road. From there, the inner journey of the two knights began to diverge. One sought luck as if waiting for a miracle to fall from the sky. The other, quietly prepared like a sower, patient, silent, and full of hope. Sid entered the forest with the mindset of someone eager for quick success. He brought nothing with him. No tools, no preparation. He didn't study the land carefully, nor did he get to know the forest's inhabitants. He thought, if the four-leaf clover is truly rare, surely someone will bring it to me, or I'll just be lucky enough to find it soon. On the first day, Sid wandered around, hoping a miracle would appear before his eyes. But nothing happened. On the second day, he grew irritated. Why hadn't he gotten lucky yet? On the third day, he blamed the forest. Surely someone else had picked the clover before him. On the fourth day, he began to doubt. Does the four-leaf clover even exist? By the seventh day, Sid gave up. He sat beneath a tree, sighed, and repeated the painful words that so many others have whispered to themselves. Luck never comes to me. That's just fate. From the moment he stepped into the forest, Knot didn't rush in like a treasure hunter. He paused under the canopy, took a deep breath, and let the scent of warm earth, decaying leaves, and distant birdsong settle into his senses. He knew that a four-leaf clover couldn't be found with hurried eyes. It needed time, space, and a soul patient enough to listen to the forest's answer. On the first day, Knot didn't search at all. He chose a small patch of land that sloped gently toward the rising sun, near a dried-up stream. If luck needs light and water to grow, he thought, then this will be the perfect cradle. He began clearing the soil, picking up fallen branches, pulling out old roots, removing even scraps left behind by others. It was meticulous, tiring work, but he did it with a quiet joy, as if preparing a space to welcome a dear friend. On the second day, Knot found a few small stones and arranged them into a border to keep water from running off too quickly. He dug a narrow trench from the stream to lead water into the soil, giving his little garden just enough moisture. Every morning he cupped water in his hands and sprinkled it gently over the grasses as though giving a blessing. He didn't know if what he was doing was right, but he believed that if there was a place where a four-leaf clover might choose to grow, this would be it. On the third day, instead of working alone, he began to observe the small creatures living in the forest, a golden squirrel darting through branches above, a pair of sparrows visiting the stream each afternoon. He left a few seeds under the trees and waited. When they began to trust him, Knot quietly studied how they moved, where they paused, where the ground was soft and mossy. He remembered it all, like learning from nature's guides. On the fourth day, he planted a few wildflowers to attract bees and butterflies. "So this place has life," he said. That same day, a young boy walked by and asked, "What are you looking for, sir?" Knot replied, "I'm preparing the ground for something miraculous." "What miracle?" "A four-leaf clover." The boy laughed. "I thought grown-ups didn't believe in such childish things." Knot simply smiled. Things we call childish sometimes hold the deepest truths. On the fifth and sixth days, Knot still hadn't found a four-leaf clover, but he wasn't discouraged. He continued watering, cleaning, and keeping pests away. Then a young woman walked by and asked, "Don't you find this all pointless? Doing so much without knowing if you'll get anything at all?" Knot answered, "I'm not doing it to get something. I'm doing it so something might happen." And then, on the morning of the seventh day, as he was gathering dry leaves along the path, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the treetops and lit up a tiny green dot, a strange, vivid speck amidst the grass. Knot bent down. For a moment, his heart stood still. It was a four-leaf clover. Not because he stumbled upon luck by chance, but because the land he had nurtured for a week had become the perfect soil for such a rare life to emerge. Knot lifted the clover in both hands, as if cradling something sacred. He didn't cheer, didn't run to tell the world. He simply smiled, a quiet smile of someone who had planted, waited, and now harvested not just a clover, but a deep belief that luck can be created. At that moment, Sid happened to walk past the patch of land where Knot was bent over, picking up dry leaves. They saw each other, two knights on the same mission, but walking two very different paths. Sid spoke first, his voice tinged with sarcasm and wariness. "You're still searching, Knot? I gave up. There's no four-leaf clover. It's just a cruel joke of fate." Knot stood up, wiped his hands on his tunic, and didn't answer right away. He simply smiled and pointed toward a low patch of grass where the sunlight had just broken through, where a tiny four-leaf clover was rising among the green leaves. Sid froze, stepping back. How is that possible?" Knot spoke gently. "I didn't find it. It came to the place that had already been prepared for it. I just did the work of a sower." Sid looked at the clover, then back at his own hands. Empty and calloused, he said nothing. A strange feeling welled up in his chest, not envy but regret. "I thought believing was enough," he murmured. "Belief is the first step," Knot replied, "but no one picks fruit just by sitting under a tree and praying. Luck doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who are ready to receive it." Sid was silent. In that moment, he realized he hadn't failed because he lacked luck, but because he didn't have enough faith to act. Not enough patience to sow. The two men stood there like mirrors reflecting two paths, one who believed the world owed him something, and one who believed he could help create something magical. And as the sun rose high, only silence remained. A simple but profound truth. Luck is not a gift from above, but the result of perseverance, preparation, and a belief that never fades. Sid quietly looked at the four-leaf clover in Knot's hand. After a moment, he let out a sigh. Not the sigh of defeat, but of someone awakening from a long, foggy dream. "So, the clover really does exist," he said, almost in a whisper. "Yes," Knot replied, "but not for those who just stand waiting at the edge of the forest." Sid lowered his head, his eyes filled with a deep sadness, but no longer bitterness. "If I could do it over, maybe I'd start by digging a small patch of soil." Knot placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. No judgment, no lecture. Luck doesn't come late. It only comes at the right time. And that time is when we're ready. Then they returned to the castle, one carrying the clover, the other carrying the lesson. The king didn't say much. He simply looked at the two young knights who had come back and understood that the value wasn't in who held the four-leaf clover, but in the story they brought home. Back in the present, Max stopped speaking. Jim sat silently for a long while, eyes staring out over the lake. "You mean luck isn't granted by the gods?" Jim asked. "It might come from the gods," Max replied, "but more often the gods are just ourselves when we know how to plant, to wait, and to believe." Jim nodded. For the first time since meeting his old friend again, he didn't mention fate or bad luck. He simply said in a soft voice, "Maybe I should start tending the soil within me." Max smiled. "And remember, four-leaf clovers don't grow where the ground hasn't been turned." Luck, a short, simple word, yet how often we attribute it to things beyond our reach, as if only those born in the light have the right to touch the good in life. But the secret of luck gently reveals a deeper truth. Miracles do not emerge from thin air. They are the result of quiet preparation, patient persistence, and an unshakable belief, even when no outcome is in sight. The four-leaf clover, that humble symbol, is never meant for those who sit and wait for fate to knock. It sprouts on the soil that someone has carefully cleared of debris, drawn water to, welcomed sunlight upon, and nourished daily with small, kind acts. The book closes with a reunion between two old men, two extremes of life, who, each in his own way, come to understand. If there truly is a secret to luck, it is this: we must actively create the fertile ground for it to appear. Luck is not a miracle. Luck is the reward for those who quietly prepare while others only wait. And sometimes the greatest miracle isn't finding a four-leaf clover, but realizing that we ourselves cultivated the place where it could grow. If this story made you pause for a moment to reflect on luck in your own life, then perhaps the miracle has already begun. Share this video with someone who could use a little hope. And if you've ever had a moment of luck in your life, tell us about it in the comments. Who knows? Your story might just become the four-leaf clover for someone else. Thank you for listening. If you found this video helpful, please share it with those who might need it. Give it a like, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to catch the latest weekly videos from Bookish Notes. Once again, thank you, and see you in the next video.